ॐ आनन्दमयी चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरं रूपं ज्योतिः परस्य धीमहि यन्नः सत्येन दीपयेत्। ॐ नमो भगवते श्री अरविन्दाय। With my humble pranams to the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, I am really delighted and happy to be here in this atmosphere of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi. In fact, listening to Vasudhara, first I was reminded of Shakespeare's one line, "If music be the food of love, play on." But here it was a spiritual music, and that sent me almost an electric shock, which reminded me of another film which I had seen in the Sri Aurobindo Ashram. In fact, we had seen it 3 times in the presence of the mother. The film was called Wizard of Oz, and then there was the golden path which leads. So here this music was the golden path, the path of spirituality, the path of progress, the path of evolution. And then I just thought that I'm going to speak to you about Ayurveda and integral yoga. Ayurveda very often in our mind comes with the bitter medicines. In fact, even as children, the mother used to advise us to take Sudarshan. Whatever might be our problem, she would say that you should take some little bit of Sudarshan, which is a combined of 20 or 30 bitter roots and things. So Ayurveda was synonym to bitterness. Not only that, in those days, as a young boy of 14, 15, naturally one of my friends, one day he was eating something very tasty in the ashram. Then I asked him, "What is it?" Then he said, "No, you should not touch it. It is the medicine." I said, "Oh, what medicine is it?" Then, "But as you are enjoying it, let me..." Then he gave me half a spoon. It was gulkand, or the jam of the rose petals, and it was so nice and sweet. But I said, "Why are you saying that it's medicine?" Then he told me that he went to the Ayurvedic Vaidya. In ashram we had, in Pondicherry ashram we had Kesrimalji. Then I said, "What symptoms did you tell him that he gave you such a nice medicine?" Then he said, "I told him that my hair is falling down, and my father and grandfather didn't have much hair." And I said, "That's perfect, that is my case also. Of course, now I have no more, but in those days my head was full." So I went to the Vaidya and told him that, yeah, Like my friend, I have the same problem. My hair is falling down, and I'm very much worried, like my father, my grandfather, I would lose all my hair. Can you advise me something? He took my pulse, thought for a while, and then asked somebody to prepare some special things. So I was just thinking how nice it would be. I'll come out with that rose petal jam and I'll enjoy it. But instead of that, he gave me such bitter mixture of things. I was really unhappy. Then I just said, oh, Ayurveda means bitterness. So, but that also taught me that each individual is different. We might be telling the same symptoms, we might be naming the same disease, but as an individual is different, the treatment would be different, or taking, so it should be not centered to the apparent, let's say, the symptoms of apparent disease or the name of the disease, but it has to be centered on the individual. And that is precisely, education also needs to be. Very often, many of the schools, they start at 9, 10 or even 11 o'clock in the morning. In fact, from 11 to 3, our brains are quite taken away in other things. That's not the time for learning. And still, most of the schools have those timings because we adopted the English heritage, which was meant not to make us intelligent or not to make us really loving our own country and culture and scriptures and things, but just to make clerks or the individuals to do the work of the European, or rather the English system of education for the English people, so that we could really work for them, and especially not for us. Of course, later on when I studied, in fact, the Indians, the Indian culture, the Indian religion, Indian sculptures was so much deep-hearted in each and every individual that the English people or the Western people could not really rule this country. And then they thought and thought and thought, and then the final answer came that we must get them disgusted with their own practices, and especially their practice of education. Because our Indian system of Gurukul was, that is, there is one guru, one teacher, or one enlightened person, and the Upanishad that we sit beside and we just learn. And therefore, the first sentence comes from one of the Upanishads which Vivekananda used to recite. He used to say, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Varanni Bodhata. That's it. Just get up, wake up, and then go find the enlightened people who can guide you, who can show you the path. So, showing us the path became the way of education in a way. And in fact, this subject touched me so much. I will not tell you today because you have had many good experiences from Tara Didi, but it is true that somehow I remember in 2004 there was one World Congress, World Conference on religions. It is the same group which had organized long ago, where Vivekananda had gone and he spoke to the Parliament of Religions. That organization had organized at Barcelona, Spain, and the chief speaker was Dalai Lama, and then there were about 10,000 speakers. I do not say how many people were there to come to listen to you, but we were about 10,000 speakers were invited from all over the world for this World Religion Parliament. And when I got the invitation, I couldn't understand that. How am I invited? I'm not a guru, nor is that world-renowned people. Then I asked them, then they said, no, you can speak about education, and we know that you have been to one of the most prestigious place, and you have had the prestigious gurus. So according to them, what is the system of education? And we are interested in the children's and especially primary children's education, so that they could go beyond towards something which is unknown, which is invisible, which is beyond our mind, and therefore we have invited you. I said, well, it seems interesting, but am I really fit for it? Anyway, I just said that I leave it to the mother and Sri Aurobindo, and in fact, especially, I'll be just very frank with you, we had the habit of leaving it only to the mother. Of course, Sri Aurobindo was always there, but, as there were 10,000 speakers, there were many halls and many places, and it was just on the near the Barcelona port, the sea, the Mediterranean Sea was beautiful, and the city of Barcelona, and I was thrilled to see, and at the same time a little bit of nervous, because then there were so many priests and gurus and some people in the all white or just orange clothes, and then other things. Some gurus from Himalayas had come with many garlands and the Rudraksh things. It was so impressive, and I knew that I will not be able to say brothers and sisters of America like Vivekananda, and that is a bit too old a story, how to address also I had. But then I took courage, and when I came and sat down, of course the adjusting of mics and things, it takes time, and that makes you still more nervous. But at the same time, I remembered that in Pondicherry, when we learned, and as I was timid, somebody had asked me that go to the theatre class or learn the art of theatre or art of drama. And we had one, her name was Shrimai. Pitoev was her family, one Russian family of actors and actresses in Paris. And So I was sure, and then the mother herself sometimes would come to see before we were going to perform. And then one day, I don't know what happened, it was in the playground, and then she stopped our practice of dramatics. Then she said, "You must learn to throw your voice and just learn to whisper so that somebody can hear at a distance." Then she made us stand this side. She went away about 30 to 40 meters away, and then they said, "Yes, speak slowly, but so that I can hear you." And that's how then that incident came back to my mind. And then I said, well, I'll be able to speak, and I will not tell you. I spoke on education, and at the end, the CNN journalists, they shook hands with me and they said that generally we had come to listen to you only for 3 minutes to just cover up all the things, but it stayed for all the 45 minutes of your speech, and it is true. And they asked me, where on earth can we find such a system of education? Then I told them, nowhere else but in Pondicherry, in Sri Aurobindo Ashram, where I learned. And that, then one more incident, and then I come straight to my subject. In the beginning, when we were young, and of course there is a prayer time, and we used to repeat the ashram school prayer, make of us the hero warriors, fait de nous les guerriers héroïques in French. But then it was long, and then some of us, we were not much with the concept of learning, and we were not speaking either English nor French, and we were feeling little lost. So one of us, we just went to the mother and said that this prayer is good, sweet mother, but we find it a little difficult. Can you not make it short and nice one so that we can learn easily? That day she was in a good mood. She just closed her eyes and then said, okay, give me your notebook. And she wrote down, sans le divin, la vie est une illusion douloureuse. Avec lui, tout est félicité. Without the divine, the life is an illusion, a miserable illusion. But with him, it is a felicity, it is a bliss. And each time when Tara Didi ends her email with bliss, it thrills me back to that old time when the mother had given us this prayer, where if you are with the divine, everything will become bliss. So, speak to you about Ayurveda and integral education. For me, it became one and the same thing. I was more in the field of education, but when I started working at UNESCO as an advisor in the field of creativity in education, it was very interesting, but at the same time, it is true that the practice of yoga existed in France and in Europe. But that practice meant only practice of asanas, and they used to call it yoga. Already that made me little, why? Asanas are asanas, postures. It gives us good health, certainly. It helps us the suppleness of the body. It will act on our glands, acts on our inner organs, and it is something very, very good, no doubt about it. But can I call it just yoga? Yogasana perhaps, but not the yoga. But that was in my mind. At the same time, it was practiced in a group, like a gymnastic exercise. So, with one of my friends, Ajit Sarkar, Ajitda, we just laughed in the evening, saying that, oh, it is yogastic gymnastics, learning and teaching. But even then, just the name of yoga being there in the Western mind, they would, I believe, something stirred, and slowly and steadily these people started turning towards Indian culture, and something much beyond. But at the same time, when I saw that the love for the physical body was there, love for beauty was there, and a body with its perfection, so, and health. People were going towards the sports activity just for the competition and earn medals. But the wellness part, the health part was somehow absent. And I just spoke to some of the friends. Then they'd ask me, what are you thinking about? I said, Ayurveda should be introduced to Europe. But they said already the asana practice is called a sort of a sect or a religion, something which France and Europe were not accepting it so much. And it is true also. In those days, there were so many gurus were exported from India. Then there were so many other people were there all over France and Europe. And let us be very clear about it, that hardly 10 or 20% were the genuine people. The others were just using certain number of techniques and tricks, and I would say what we call it in French, charlatanisme, means the fraud-like thing. And naturally, the people were afraid to follow such path. But luckily, my work at UNESCO helped me. The first speech I gave about Ayurveda, that was at the Geneva International UNO building, and of course, naturally dressed up, nice suit with a proper tie and things like that. So they said that, oh, he is a gentleman, what he speaks must be having some meaning. And so the first speech on Ayurveda was appreciated. At the same time, of course, I sought some light or whether I was on the right path or no. The very next day, I went to Andreda. Andre Maurice was the son of the mother, and he was already completely in the mother's following much later, if you know this story. And in his apartment, I asked him, what do you think? Should I speak a little more about Ayurveda and things like that? He said, why not? Then I asked him about the teachings of Sri Aurobindo the mother in France, and there was no center of the mother and Sri Aurobindo in Paris. Then he told me, no, the mother was not that very warm to make a religious spot in Paris where people would just come and put their head and just do their prayers. Let that part be in India, and let the mothers and Sri Aurobindo's light and learning come to the world. Well, and he said that let each one have one's own way. Then luckily we went to another talks which I share with you, which would be interesting for you, that in those days, in beginning of 20th century, the mother and Andreda's father, Monsieur Maurice, they had a car and they would go towards Normandy. And very often in those days, car would get just stuck and it will not work. So in those days, the mother had put up 2 bicycles behind the car, tied. So if the car is out of work, they'll just put it on the side, take their bikes and just continue their path. So similarly with this little bit of talk, he encouraged me that I should slowly start speaking to people about what is my inner feeling about Ayurveda. That's how I introduced slowly, and certainly the concept of Ayurveda is first the concept of health. There are 2 small definitions of good health according to Ayurveda, one complicated one and one simple one. Which one should I tell you first? Tell me. Complicated. All want complicated. Okay. No, but even then I'll tell you the easy one, which should help you. If early in the morning, just before the sun rises, if you just open your eyes and want to get out of the bed with full enthusiasm that today is a great day, I'll be doing great many things and I have a lot of enthusiasm and happiness and work. If that is your state of mind and being, be sure you are in good health. Otherwise, you must go and consult someone. Well, so many of us, it's not that easy to wake up in the morning, and especially even if our eyes open, we don't want to go out of the bed. So, well, that's the first easy definition of good health. But the second complicated definition of the health according to Ayurveda is your 3 doshas, Vat, Pitta and Kapha. They should be in harmony. Perhaps you know what is Vat, what is Pitta, what is Kapha. If not, we'll come along. Secondly, the 7 dhatus, the 7 tissues. The first one is rasa, the the juice, that which nourishes us, then rakta, the blood. Similarly, there are 7 dhatus, and then after that 7th dhatu, the food which we had consumed, which had given us all the rasas, it had transformed into the blood, and then finally, and the blood in those days, about 5,000 years or even before, when Ayurveda was there, that your blood should be in the perfect proportions with its constituents. That is to say, if you are in your blood, if you have red blood cells or white corpuscles, they should be not too many, not too less. If you need to have the iron or magnesium or even sugar, the glucose in your blood should be in correct measurements or proportion, not more, not less. And then one of the old teachers of Ayurveda writes in the ancient texts that even if you are very rich, you have absolutely no rights to have too much of sugar in your blood. You can have sugar in your kitchen, but not in your blood, because that will, and in the beginning, to translate from Sanskrit, then if you have more this, that, your blood would be vitiated. But then finally it came down to say that you should not have too much of sugar in your blood. So the concept of Ayurveda took care of this right from the health of your blood and the blood analysis. Even in those days it existed. That was something wonderful. Just my personal curiosity, one of my teachers of Ayurveda, I told him that how come in those days the analysis didn't exist, there were no big laboratories and things. How can you say that the blood has this much and that much and things like that? Do you think that in the olden days the laboratories existed, or rather something like that? He smiled at me. He said, and that day we were just walking in a small village in Gujarat, and it was a dry time. The small roads were empty and just earthen small roads, So he just smiled at me and just said, just stand up. Then he showed with his finger, can you see something? And I just looked at it. I saw that there was in one corner of near one tree, it was little wet. And then I said, yes, we are in a small village in India, People urinate sometimes, and especially men. If there is no one over here, why not go towards a small corner? And then he said, yeah, that's right, but go and see it. I was not that happy to go and see somebody's urine that way, though as a medical practitioner one needs to examine. But even then I went and saw. Then he said, do you see something? I just put up my shoulders. I said, what would I see? It's just wet and somebody has... I said, no, see properly. And then I saw a little more properly, and I saw there were many ants near that. Then he said, oh, ants, what does it mean? Then I said, yes, you are right, sir. It just means that the person who has passed urine must be a diabetic patient. Then he said, yes, you are on the right path. Then he said, but the variety of these ants would show that the patient doesn't have more than 15 days to live on earth. That surprised me. And naturally, being in the village, I did find out later on that, one man expired in just 3 days after that day. And then my professor of Ayurveda told me that you need not always have the big laboratories to do the analysis. There are different manners also. But then he said, even what you consider to be the laboratory tests that did exist in the olden time. So I continue my story. The tissues, the dhatus have to be in the proper proportions and should be strong. And finally, the Shukra Dhatu, that is for the reproduction, but that instead of used up in the reproduction or wasted away, if it is transformed into ojas, and naturally each and every being is transforming that Shukra into ojas, and that ojas gives us our aura or our light. Not only that, it gives us, according to Ayurveda, more of immunity, what we are looking forward for the health. If you have more immunity, naturally you'll be able to make a great work. Even one of the greatest of scientists and medical practitioner of France, Pasteur, and we do use the word pasteurizing the thing, because Pasteur said that all the disease have their origin in some bacteria or in some viruses, and therefore we fall sick, ill. But the Indian traditional thing says that if you are strong enough, if your immunity is there, then it will not hurt you or it will not make you fall ill. So, but towards the end of the life of Pasteur himself, he realized that, and he said, les virus et maladies, les bactéries ne sont pas tellement responsables. The bacteria are not that much of importance. What is importance is your terrain, is your ground, is your body, is your own inner strength to fight back. And that inner strength for fight back comes, according to Ayurveda, from your ojas or from the transformation of that dhatu. Then Ayurveda will speak, to have good health, you need to have first of all the good ojas. Then you need to have your fire elements. There are 13 types of fire in Ayurveda, and those fires, Jatragni, that is the fire in the stomach, which helps you to digest. Not only digest food, but even they digest the emotions. Sometimes somebody tells you something, you listen, you are not agreeing. That means you are not digesting that properly. Sometimes even with our parents or our teachers, some of the sentences pronounced, it takes years to digest. And very often we do not even digest at all those sentences. So that digestive power needs to be there. Then certainly there are other 12 fires in Agni, in the Ayurvedic concept, which needs to be lighted up. Then there are 3 things which we need to eliminate: stool, urine, sweat, has to be taken out of us. In French, we have when somebody is annoying to you, they say, oh, he makes me sweat, That's a sort of but then when I speak to the French people, I said, you speak this sentence that, oh, somebody is annoying and that's making you sweat like that. But sweating is good for health. It, according to the Ayurveda, it has to be eliminated. So this gives the physical health according to Ayurveda. But then Ayurveda goes and says the prana, or the vital being, and all the senses, the five senses, they have to work properly. Your eyes, your ears, your nose. Not only the indriyas should work properly, but at the same time, it should lead you towards some creativity. It should lead you towards something which goes beyond, and the artistic activities, the musical activities, the dance, all these things will help you to go, then to be able to control our moh, maya, mad, all these things, all our desires, our anger. In fact, we are very often angry, but physically, to get all the hormones and all the body substances, according to the medical science I am speaking, it will take you at least 1 week after a short burst of anger for 2 to 3 minutes, but it will take whole your body to get into the alignment and to get into the proper health at least about 1 week. So if you know this, naturally next time when you want to be angry, you'll just take care. But it is true. And very often I have a friend in Greece. His name is Dr. Kostopoulos, and he recites Sanskrit shlokas and Ayurveda's things with a very well-known medical practitioner. He was there in London, and then now he's in Athens. But each time he goes to the world congresses and conferences of medicine and other things. But when he comes in my center in Tapovan, where we organize once a year a world congress on yoga and Ayurveda, so he comes and says that, oh, in February 2024, there was a big world congress in Boston about medical science. And there were people from all over the world, and we found out as things that because of this thing in the brain and because of this and that, and he'll put up the latest discovery of the medical science. He puts one on the screen, and then the next one, he just says, but in olden time, he puts one sentence in Sanskrit, and he just says, do you not find the similarity of these things? And we all look at the sentences. It's almost the same thing. What the modern science discovers today, that was already told in our ancient scriptures a long ago, either with this Charaka or Sushruta or Vagbhata, some ancient rishis or Vaidyas, so much so, Sushruta, who was one of the biggest surgeons of olden time, he is so much respected that about a few years ago, 10 years or something ago, one of the biggest universities and hospital in Australia, and at the entrance there is a statue of Sushruta saying the father of modern surgery. And so that has been respected in that manner. So I come back to the definition of health again. So the indriyas, our five senses, should be working in a very good manner. And then comes uh, the joy. We needs to have some enthusiasm with our vital being. And the vital being should be a helping hand, not the vital which gives us almost hampers our progress with our sorts of feelings. And then comes the manas has to be quiet. Mind needs to be quiet and calm, peaceful, without much thoughts, without much disturbances, happy to learn, happy to understand, and happy to analyze, happy to make the synthesis, then the anti-synthesis, and then again the synthesis of the thoughts. So the mind is an instrument of learning, not learning by itself. And at the end, again, it says, and your inner being, your Atma, your soul, or whatever you want to call it, it has to be on the path of progress, on the path of evolution, on the path of Sat, Chit and Ananda, but mainly, again, the word Ananda is, and invariably, I think again about Tara Didi when she writes bliss, that your inner being has to be in bliss if you want to be in good health. So with this definition of health, I just found that it is the perfect definition according to the integral education, where we'll first work out our physical body in good health. That is to say, with proper diet, with proper lifestyle, where every day, right from the morning till evening and at night, rest is important at night, but the daily activities have to be done in such a manner that it helps us. Diet has to be sattvic in a manner, but the lifestyle where we have sports activities or the physical education activities, not sports to become the first one, but to do our best. And there, many of you must be knowing it, that the program in our ashram school, where we have games, but we have gymnastics, Olympic gymnastics, we have athletics, then we have combatives, swimming. So all these integrally practiced would give you good health. And every day one needs to devote some time for our physical being to be in good health. Practices of asanas also is very interesting. Practices. So the physical practices, that is the first base, so that our, what Pasteur wanted, our terrain, our grounding has to be strong. Then comes naturally in the vital education is one of the best part of education, where I have gone round the earth from, let's say, from Japan to New York with all the European countries, and but the vital education is never understood, or rather, even in French there is a very nice saying, le cœur a ses raisons que les raisons ne comprennent pas. That is, the heart has its own reasons, and the reason or the mind doesn't understand the reason of the heart. So the creativity part is very, very important, or our vital being is one of the key center to be educated. And mental education I will not speak. You all know, you have all gone to the schools, colleges, and you have done your PhDs and other things. But beyond that is in the Vedas, and one of my best teachers, Nolinida in ashram, he used to say that all these what you are learning is avidya, is no knowledge. The real knowledge is somewhere else. So to get into the real knowledge, you need to go beyond all these things, and that is your psychic being and your spiritual growth. So this is how personally I felt that yoga, Ayurveda and integral education, and for me, for each and every one of us, taking care of our human body, then taking care of our vital being, and then taking care of our mental being, and let our psychic and spiritual follow that golden path, on the path towards the bliss. I don't know whether we have some time. Otherwise, we'll put up the questions later on when we meet. Dhatus in Ayurveda are called, there are 7 dhatus, the 7 tissues. So the first one is the rasa, that is to say, the food what we eat, that is transformed into the rasa, that is been absorbed by the body, and what is not absorbed is eliminated. So the first dhatu is rasa. Of course, yesterday we saw the navrasa. That is also the food for the human being. That's all the navrasas of the art, of dance, of music, that also nourishes us. Rasas are something which is the food which is nourishing. That is the first dhatu, that is the first tissue. And then from there it will transform with an agni, with a fire, into the blood, into the rakta. And so the second is rakta. Then there is mamsa, then there is this, that, the whole transformation in the body which takes place. So the concept of dhatu is something unique in Ayurveda, and though the modern medicine will not understand that, but a Vaidya who will take care of that part of our being will be able to go much in a deeper manner and in an easier manner, because one studies similarly the Vat, Pitta, Kapha also, that one, our being, even if you are sneezing and you have a cold, but your cold might be different from the cold of somebody else. So similarly, one can treat a person, not a disease. In fact, that's what I found. The whole process of Ayurveda was nothing else in its true manner but to understand oneself first of all, and it is not said directly the word, but chitta, consciousness, has to be developed so that we become more and more conscious of everything. And our own consciousness gets, according to Ayurveda, more consistent or more solid or more wide, so that we can understand more. And the development of the consciousness is the fundamental aim, not just the development of our mind, not the development of our body or development of our indriyas. This is how I understand. I have written about 14 to 15 books, but all in French, and it is more of the fundamentals for teaching or understanding. And in fact, I'm the first one who has written about Ayurvedic principles almost in the thoughts of the mother in Sri Aurobindo, taking care of the physical body, the vital body, and the mind, and the other things. But you are right. One should, even in English and Indian languages, should divert it towards this. I'll think of how. For the present, one needs to learn how to read between the lines. And at present, therefore, for example, one of my Ayurvedic teachers was Dr. Shantaram Vaidya. He was even asked to come for Sri Aurobindo's last days, and then with some other, because Sri Aurobindo was with so many eminent doctors and disciples of, he was there, Niruddha, Dr. F.R.C.S., then there was Dr. So many doctors were there, but the mother wanted some, then even Triphala, it's a simple Ayurvedic herb out of 3 fruits, we all take. But even then the mother took the powder in her hand, then she just thought for a while. Then she said, no, for Sri Aurobindo or the divine, this is not necessary. His inner force is of more importance. So personally I feel that to understand Ayurveda in this manner, there is also one spirituality in Ayurveda. One book was there. I was much inspired by that one. But personally I feel that the true practice of Ayurveda is not just to get rid of the diseases, but just to make a human being more conscious, more powerful, developing first the health, but also the vital being where we have the control over our certain desires, certain likes and dislikes, and things like that. Thank you for the question. I don't know. In a way, it's a little personal also, but it's true that in fact, when I was born in 44, my father was already working with Gandhiji in Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat. And in 1942, when he was in the prison, Sardar Patel, who was his friend, he said, go to Sabarmati Ashram because all of us, we are in the prison and you'll be the only one educated person to look after Sabarmati. But at the same time, as my father had the great opportunity to read Arya, the magazine published by Sri Aurobindo and the mother, and so naturally, though he was Gandhian, he had become Sri Aurobindonian in his heart. So he was visiting since 42 and very regularly Pondicherry, and in 1948 I was just 4 years old, and we went to Pondicherry. We didn't have, because permission to go for the darshan in those days was taken at least 6 months or before. Who would visit Sri Aurobindo? But somebody said that, oh, you can ask the mother if Kiran could go. So 2 days before the darshan day, naturally in the playground, I met the mother. Of course, I was thrilled to see her. Even I still remember her velvet sari, and even after the meeting her when she was in the playground, I just went a little bit behind her and just touched her sari. She turned towards me and just caressed my head, and then we were to get the answer on the next day, and my parents were very happy. I was not even much aware that it was agreed that I could go for Sri Aurobindo and the mother's darshan on the darshan day. So it's difficult to say in that, but what I would say that I still remember very vividly all those tiger heads, and in the beginning I thought one needs to be afraid of these tigers, but I'm not afraid. What's happening? That was my first childish feeling, seeing those tiger heads before reaching Sri Aurobindo. And then naturally in front of Sri Aurobindo, it was something unique. Means one side it was a great felicity, great, and at the same time, you know, when you, for example, when you enter water in a river or in a swimming pool or in the ocean, you know, from the air you get into some other substance, you know. So similarly, it was entering into some other substance. That was the first feeling. Secondly, in those days at the age of 4, you don't have a problem of controlling your mind. So that wasn't there. But tremendous joy or happiness, or what I would call it, raison d'être, let's say purpose of life. Somehow I understood that there is something, there is an aim, and that aim is nothing else but the mother and Sri Aurobindo, which I never told anybody as such. In fact, this is for the first time I'm telling that I understood what is the aim of life. Is aim, for me it became that, but never was explicit in that way. But feeling was there, feeling of great happiness, feeling of great freedom, which is very difficult to explain. Most of us, we are always entangled, bounded by what would this person will say, what is our duty, what is not our duty, what is our work. So, in fact, the liberation of that part, in fact, I'm extremely happy to tell you that I got it right at the age of 4 by the spiritual blessings from that. And certainly, I believe rare are the occasions for the human being to see the divine. Of course, as a student meeting the mother in those days 4 times, 5 times a day, but never thought, though thought, though understood that she is the divine, at the same time it was so natural that I would say couldn't understand that we were in the presence of the divine in those days. Thank you. Merci beaucoup Tara Didi, and merci to all of you. Thanks to all of you to giving me this great opportunity to be with you, and I'm really my humble gratitude to each and every one of you.